Then I took a smidge and applied it down there.
This one's wife. Visa Judgement. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Harry's past admissions about drug use have come back to bite him on the bottom in relation to his visa for him to remain in the United States. You will recall that the Prince of Pink Pancakes had admitted, both covered in the press, but moreover in his recent book Spare, that he'd engaged in personal drug use. One of the things that has to be completed in a visa application is an admission of drug taking, and invariably an admission of drug taking amounts to a bar to entry to the United States. Thus, the suggestion is that either he has lied on his visa application, or that if he did not, he must have received some kind of preferential treatment, and why should he do so? This has resulted in his visa application coming under scrutiny. And according to Emma Guinness, writing in The Independent, that there has been some movement in that regard in respect of providing judgment about it. She explains, a judge is understood to have completed their review of Prince Harry's visa application to the United States following revelations about his past drug use in his bombshell 2023 memoir, Spare. Previously, you'll recall that Prince Harry's US visa application was being reviewed by a judge following the admissions about his drug use. The Heritage Foundation launched a lawsuit against the Royal to determine whether he lied on his full-time visa application when he moved to California alongside his wife, this one's wife. Under US visa rules, applicants are questioned about substance use and previous criminal charges. A filing for the think tank group said the case comes about in the main because His Royal Highness voluntarily, and for immense profit, admitted in writing to the elements of any number of controlled substance violations. At the time, he admitted to the use of substances such as cocaine, cannabis, and psychedelics. It's reported that a judge appears to have submitted a decision to a US court about Prince Harry's visa drugs row. Judge Carl Nichols is believed to have put forward his decision in a sealed document. It has not been made public yet, but could be released in the coming days. The row erupted last year when the Heritage Foundation launched the case. The think tank sued the Department of Homeland Security after they rejected a Freedom of Information request to unveil Prince Harry's immigration files. After examining Harry's immigration documents for 4 months, one wonders why it would take so long. Is there that much material? Judge Nichols is said to have filed his decision at a Washington, D.C. court. Apparently, the order is procedural as opposed to an actual judgment. At the moment, the document can only be seen by authorised persons. Prince Harry's immigration filings could have major implications on his future in the United States, investigators have previously said. In the circumstances, Melissa Chavin, who works for the Chapman Immigration Law Office, previously explained that Harry is likely to hold what's known as an A1 visa, which is given to ambassadors, heads of states, and members of the royal family. She said, "I think that the visa Prince Harry is something that none of us see, and for me it is very uncommon and rare." When asked about the kind of security checks the Duke would have undergone, Chavin replied, "I think there's a focus on only 3 areas: terrorism, contrary to foreign policy, and espionage, just on the big headline level of what those ineligibilities might be. But, yes, everyone else has a look at whether you violated a controlled substance or statute." Thus, it remains to be seen whether the decision the relevant procedural judgment will be open to the public, or at least the relevant interested parties who presumably, subject to judicial order, will then make the content public themselves. It's interesting that reference is made to it being procedural, which might mean that some kind of decision has not yet been made, though quite why it's taking so long to review the documentation and come to a decision about it, well, one can only understand. One can only speculate, rather, as to why that might be. What is clear is that Harry has admitted that he's taken drugs. They were his own words given to the ghostwriter in Spare, whilst we know that a lot of Spare was actually written by this one's wife. The aspects of his drug use was conveyed by him, undoubtedly encouraged by his wife as part of hanging him out to dry, as I explained at the time, part of his sustained devaluation. So it is not in dispute that Harry has taken drugs. He can't deny it. He's admitted it himself. It isn't the case that people have offered speculation or hearsay about having witnessed him taking drugs and written about it elsewhere. Harry has freely admitted that he's done so, and has done so several times. Therefore, the question remains, what was in his visa application? Did he omit this information? Therefore he has lied, and what is the repercussion in respect of that? Or did he admit to it, but somehow has received preferential treatment? And if so, why? And what would be the result of that? We know, for instance, that presidential candidate Trump has suggested that Harry would be booted from the country, that he'd have no hesitation to do so. And potentially this is an outcome. Whether the decision of Judge Nichols draws one closer to that being a possibility, we just simply don't know. But once again, if this were the case, that it is an aspect that makes it difficult for Harry to remain in the United States, or impossible to remain in the United States, then that may just precipitate his disengagement. After all, the logical thing for him to do would be to return to the United Kingdom. That is not something that this one's wife wants to do. As I've made abundantly clear on many occasions, her narcissism recognises the United Kingdom as an entirely hostile place. A hostile populace, a hostile royal family, and a hostile media. And therefore, because that is a triumvirate of threats to control and substantial ones, her narcissism recognises there's no point going there. It's just going to be trouble. It isn't the case that her love for her husband would outweigh those potential issues. She has no love for him because she has no emotional empathy. And thus, if there is the potential for Harry to be, in effect, deported from the United States, if that was ever going to happen, it isn't the case that this one's wife is likely to go with him to the United Kingdom. Might he go somewhere else? Potentially Africa? Well, he's always spoken about how he feels that he's freest in Africa. But again, this one's wife isn't going to do that. Sure, she'll go and patronise Nigerians for a few days, but she doesn't want to live there because it doesn't provide her the maximum of the prime aims in the way that being in the United States does. Even though she's failing in the United States, the delusion of her narcissism continues to tell her that she will succeed, that she will continue to explore opportunities which, of course, are far more prolific and abundant in the United States than, say, in Africa. Accordingly, if it is the case, and it remains entirely speculation, that Harry finds himself expelled from the United States as a consequence of his visa difficulties, it may well prove to be the thing that precipitates his disengagement by this one's wife. We will have to wait and see what happens next. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.